Joel Embiid decided to make some comments.
Yep.
And of course, when he, the franchise, the MVP, the superstar of the organization, says what he said, obviously, we got to talk about it. We're going to be doing that here on the Daily Ticket. My name is Jon Jansen. Follow me at JJansen34. Joining me for the entire show today, 3 to 5, and then we're going to play Swing It and Ding It for the third hour. But it is Sean Barnard. Sean, how you doing? Because I know you pick swap, do a lot of Sixers talk, and I imagine that you have some thoughts about Joel Embiid.
I do. I have a lot of thoughts on the situation. And first off, a beautiful day for golf out here. It's just about the ideal day you pictured to be on the greens, hitting some balls around. So nice to see that. But yeah, as far as the Joel Embiid, not great to roll out of bed in the morning, check your phone, and see some kind of unhappy comments from your superstar player, the reigning MVP. So
yeah, so I will. We're gonna play it now, and I don't know if it sounds unhappy, if it's just something that crossed his mind and how he said it. So to hear how it sounded first, this was at an event. I think I want to get the exact attribute right, but it was I think the moviereport.com.
It was with Maverick Carter.
With Maverick Carter, and Embiid was talking about wanting to win championships, and may have said that he might win championships somewhere else. Here's that clip of Joel Embiid.
You're great, but what can we look forward from Joel Embiid?
I just want to win a championship. Whatever it takes. I don't know where that's going to be, whether it's in Philly or, anywhere else. I just want to have a chance to accomplish that. I want to see what it feels like to win that first one and then think about, the next one. It's not easy. But it takes more than one, 2, 3 guys. Gotta have good people around you, and like myself, every single day I work hard to be at that level, so I can produce and make it happen. So every single day that's working towards that.
Your brain.
So there it is. There's Joel Embiid. It's saying he wants to win a championship, have that feeling of winning a championship. Obviously, he said in Philadelphia, but then came what threw everybody into a Twitter storm, what was one of the top stories on ESPN that literally had the title Exit Process ? And it was or anywhere else. And with the way things have gone for the Sixers, there have been talks. There was a report, I think as soon as the offseason started, a report of New York actually wanting, the Knicks wanting to get in on Joel Embiid and that they would be interested. Obviously, you dismiss it pretty quickly because Joel Embiid isn't going to be on the market. You're not trading your star player. And then Embiid says something like this. They have been disappointing in the playoffs with second round exits. There's going to be a breaking point at some point if they don't ever get to an Eastern Conference final, an NBA title. And as stars move in and out and the roster changes, frustration likely grows. That didn't sound like frustration to me. I don't know if that was frustration. More of just, Embiid keeping it open. And I don't even know if there is too much to look into it, but what is your reaction? How do you look into what he said?
Yeah, I want to start out by saying Joel Embiid knows what he's doing. That this is no throwaway quote. This is no accident. He is incredibly intelligent and very aware of his media handlings. He does not say things without understanding the repercussions. And this, to me, is very clearly a message to the Sixers front office of get it together. That this is now 6 consecutive seasons of not picking it past the second round. Now, there also should be some self-awareness on the part of Joel Embiid that he is a key part of not making it past those second rounds and that wall being trouble for them to clear. So that is definitely the frustration and the perception of it, of hearing him say that when knowing that he's a part of the issue. And it is not only Joel Embiid's fault for sure. There's been a revolving door of players, of coaches, of front office personnel in the Sixers organization. And I think that's the root of a great deal of the frustration, of the lack of stability. And even this offseason, when we have James Harden, who has provided the best playoff minutes alongside Joel Embiid that we've ever seen, for him to not want to come back and him to be opting in to be traded, it just feels like there's so much frustration. Joel is hearing it, and he's letting it be known that he is hearing it.
Yeah, I think you're right. It lacks any kind of self-awareness to me. And not just, self-awareness of him. Obviously, we need him to be better in these playoff games, and I think he needs to be better, and I think he even knows that. And I'm sure watching Jokic perform the way he did in winning an NBA final, that's something I'm sure he is aware of. But it's also a self-awareness of where the Sixers organization is at and how the fan base is feeling about them at this moment. And that's what's so surprising to me, because this isn't just Joel. This is now multiple Sixers players all offseason long, the GM doing it. It is condescending. Every single one of these players have been condescending and annoying the entire offseason. Tobias Harris was the first one with the crumble cookies comment. Not saying that he's wrong, but again, they have to understand why the frustrations are there. Last year felt like a make or break moment, or last season felt like a make or break moment for the Sixers, and they broke. They didn't perform well in game 6 and 7. It was actually two of the worst and maybe two of the most disappointing performances. I called it weak. I don't know if that's the right thing to call it, but I think certainly it was not good. And they lost the opportunity to move on in the Eastern Conference Final. Game 6, the last 5 minutes was not particularly good. And Game 7, nobody showed up, especially your two biggest stars didn't show up in the biggest game of the entire season. And that could alter your franchise if they would win that game. So it's just the way they have gone into this offseason with the mindset of pushing back on any criticisms, not accepting those failures, not accepting the fact that they haven't gone to an NBA championship at all with Joel Embiid, an MVP player, one of the best players in the league, and to be condescending to the fan base who is frustrated by that. I just don't get that. Yeah. I don't understand why they need to be so defensive, because this offseason should have been more about learning from it, accepting that, hey, this is a problem now. We haven't been to places we want to go, and there's got to be a way to fix it. We knew going into this offseason there were going to be hard questions that were going to be asked, hard decisions that were going to be made. Morey already made one of the difficult decisions in not bringing back Doc Rivers and bringing in Nick Nurse. That was one decision. Now you have a decision with James Harden that has arisen. So there were going to be tough decisions that had to be made, and we knew that things are going to change. And maybe things weren't going to be all roses going into the offseason. But to have this attitude, that I don't understand. Why the condescending attitude towards everything and everybody? And I think, honestly, the worst one may be Daryl Morey out of all of them, with the crumble cookies comment, then going to crumble cookie, then also trying to discredit good reporting and good reporters. I don't understand why that needs to be done and why it's happening.
And for me, this exit hurt worse than any of the other years. And the reason for that is very front and center, Joel Embiid. This is the first time in his career that he is receiving majority of the blame on it. And I think that's new for him, and he's kind of understanding and feeling those aggravations from fans. And the reason for that, like, one would think from all the second round exits that there's almost a numbness to the pain, but I don't think that's the case.
No, this one was the worst.
Yes.
This was the worst.
And the reason for that is Sixers fans and the Sixers organization have been through the evolution of Joel Embiid from start to finish. When he was drafted, there were the 2 years without him playing. Then there was all this hope. And don't get me wrong, Joel Embiid has been a guy ready to stir the pot and troll from day one. This is the same guy that was tweeting at Kim Kardashian and Rihanna for dates before he'd even stepped on the NBA floor. But then to see him grow into this superstar player and into this MVP player, and for him to take that next step this year as an MVP, and it felt beyond the numbers, beyond the ridiculous stats and the stat line, the box scores that he was putting up, it felt like he had a different control over the game, that it was translating to winning in a way that wasn't necessarily the case in past years. And then for all that to kind of unravel in the playoffs, much of it due to Joel Embiid not able to have that same impact, is super frustrating. So then it brings front and center those same questions of, can you win with Joel Embiid? And I still believe you can. I'm not ready to hop off this bandwagon.
I believe so as well. I do believe that.
But I do think that there needs to be some looking himself in the mirror moments from Joel Embiid of, how can I impact winning in a better way? What changes do I need to make for my game? And that's my concern, because it hasn't just been that quote. You hop on Joel Embiid's Twitter right now, amid all this stir where everyone's firing up, we get a tweet from Joel saying, "We're in this together forever, ... 5 days." Which I still don't know what that means.
Have we cracked that code yet? What's in 5 days?
I'm not sure. My best guess is it's some sort of soccer reference, because that tends to be most of his Twitter, but I have nothing for what's coming up in 5 days exactly. Also, he quote tweeted somebody kind of challenging him about these comments, and he said, "Buddy, check my middle name," which on Twitter, his middle name is Troel, which you kind of have to
That's
respect.
okay. You can go ahead. Keep calling yourself a troll and Troel, all that. Keep doing it, but then it's going to be on the front page of ESPN.
Right.
And then we're going to talk about it. And then I've even seen others posting videos of, maybe Joel Embiid is going to be traded and the market for Embiid is going to ramp up because of these comments. These comments mean something. We are at a point where trolling isn't really something you should be doing right now. Mm-hmm. I don't think I want to hear it. I don't think you want to hear it. I don't think the fan base wants to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Trolling's fine when you're trolling a soccer match or something like that. Fantastic. Go ahead. Do it. But you just, it sounds like it's coming off from a different place than just trying to troll and be funny and lighthearted. It comes, again, in a condescending tone.
Yeah.
And that's I don't think he understands it. He is very social media savvy. He's very media savvy. He knew these comments were going to be taken in some kind of way and that they were going to be talked about. I don't know why you would make the comment necessarily at this moment, unless you are potentially thinking about it. And I hate to even dig too deep into it because I think Joel Embiid wants to be here, but I don't know why he left the door open for people to even speculate about it. But again, it comes from it feels like it's coming from a different place other than, haha, I made a joke. I'm a troll. This is Twitter. This is social media. Nothing's that serious. It felt condescending. And maybe that's not fair to him because it's more of his other teammates and his GM that have set that tone this offseason.
Yeah, and also, like, this was brought up by Joel's free will. The question was not, like, will you spend your career in Philadelphia? The question was, what can we expect from Joel Embiid on the court? And he brought forth that, I want to compete for a championship, whether it is Philadelphia or anywhere else. That was him bringing that to light. And also, there tends to be some truth in good jokes. There tends to be a little truth behind things when something. So I think there's some truth that in Joel, which is also frustrating in the fact that we'll stand on it if that's what you mean. And I don't think that's where he's at. I think this is more of a message of, like, maybe his patience is running thin because they have not advanced and they have not gotten closer to this goal of a championship. But it is very frustrating. And even to point to your point about media savvy, even later in this interview, Joel Embiid himself had a quote referencing the same thing. This is from that very, very same interview where Joel says, quote, basketball is more than what happens on the floor. At times you get to set the tone. If you just lost a game in the playoffs, you try and send a message, not just to the opposition, but also to your teammates. You can use the media and what you say to push that. I have a lot of examples. My guy, Tyrese Maxey, I'm always saying a bunch of stuff. At the end of the day, they understand it. It's all because we want to win. So for you to have that grasp of how the media can be used by a tool by players in the same breath of what you just did, to me, it very much connects it. He's very well aware of what he's doing, and the Sixers should understand that as well.
They should. And this is the first time, and I think you mentioned it, that a lot of the blame has been put on Joel and not just put on him. I think people are frustrated. And so now what this does is a star player that everybody wanted to win MVP, that we have been supporting, defending Joel Embiid to the point where we've been saying Joel Embiid is better than Nikola Jokic. We support. And I think frustrations now are at such a high point. I honestly think Joel is kind of losing favor here.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are going to be people that take it too far because I think there are some that, just trade him right away. We should trade him now. That's not, first of all, that's not reality.
Right.
Let's be realistic. Let's be actual, adults about this.
Think about Daryl Morey won't reach a point for James Harden as a price tag. Picture what he would request for the reigning MVP.
Like, let's be realistic.
Right.
He's not going to be traded. He's the best shot they have at a title. Again, in order to get there, he's the one that's going to have to make the changes necessary or continue to improve in a way that he can win in the playoffs. But, a lot of this comes down to Embiid, and he's honestly too good to let go. You can't do that. So he will be here as long as he wants to be here, and every indication, even with these comments, are he's going to be here. But this just felt like something that didn't need to be said. And now it's everywhere.
Right.
And now we have to talk about it. Everybody has to talk about it. And that's where the frustration lies. And I think, the trolling thing is fun when you're winning and it seems lighthearted, and now they're not. And the trolling thing is, I think, going to get him out of favor with a lot of people. And look, there's already some, again, going to the extreme of they want him traded, which, again, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And to touch on what I believe is the winning formula with Joel Embiid. So we've seen this guy win the scoring title the past 2 years, leading the league in scoring, 33 points per game this season. We've seen him be MVP this season, runner-up the past 2 years. There's no doubt about what he is as an individual talent. But as far as becoming a team-oriented player, for raising the ceiling of guys around you, that's where we need to see growth. And to me, that's the biggest room for optimism of why Nick Nurse is here. It is not the Doc Rivers play call of everyone give it to Joel Embiid and watch. I need to see more motion. And I also think there's very much a world where the most impactful version of Joel Embiid in terms of winning is not him leading the NBA in scoring. Maybe he's not a 33-point per game scorer. Maybe he's a 25-point per game scorer who dominates on the boards and is a force defensively. Since he came into the NBA, Joel Embiid has repetitively stated that Defensive Player of the Year was a goal of his. I want to see what that looks like. Show me Joel Embiid committed to the defensive side of the floor on an every possession basis, because we don't get that through the regular season. And I understand because there's so much on him. And also in Joel's defense, the most efficient way for the Sixers to score has still been giving him the basketball. So there needs to be alternate routes of ways to outsource offense for him to be willing to take that off the plate. But that's where I need to see growth, is him not being so individualized and taking this on and by himself. Get everyone involved. find more room for offense, and let him be this defensive and rebounding force, which very few can be because of his size.
Yeah, it's not fun to be talking about this and to be talking about some of the things he needs to improve, maybe changes to his game. But we are having fun, though, today here at the Swing It and Ding It Open 2023, benefiting the Magical Mila Foundation at the Legacy Club at Woodcrest. By the way, this entire clubhouse, this golf course, absolutely gorgeous. If you're checking out on our YouTube channel, by the way, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Fox Sports The Gambler. If you're watching it, go check it out and see the views behind us. You're already seeing the views behind us. If you're not watching, go ahead, bring up YouTube and check it. It is absolutely gorgeous out here. So, yeah, a lot of fun being had today. We saw Sean brace, and finally, the neck problems, keeps talking about it, and it gets really annoying. He got stretched out. We have the stretch zone out here, and so everybody was getting stretched before, getting warmed up. Sean brace, the neck's feeling good. I thought by now, so they've been out on the course, I think for about a couple of hours now, maybe 2.5 hours. Sean brace has not come back into the clubhouse yet.
True.
So I certainly had the under on that. So he seems to be doing okay. The stretch zone seemed to have worked and get everybody ready to go, and also everybody's also having some great drinks as well.
Yeah, donated Tito's by, keeping them going.
Yeah, Workhorse Par Punch, and also the Arnold Palmer Spiked, and some Tito's out there as well. So we're having a great time here at the Swing It and Dig It Open 2023 here on the Daily Ticket. Again, Sean Barnard, John Jansen here will be with you till 5, and then Swing It and Ding It. We'll play that at 5 o'clock in the third hour. Also on today's show, Jeff Parles will be joining us at the top of the 5 o'clock hour, and we'll talk with him about his Mets. His fantastic, incredibly bad New York Mets. That'll be at 5 o'clock. And then John Clark joined us as well. So we recorded a quick interview with him, and obviously talking about the Heat, but also talking about the Heat from the Phillies. Phils are hot. Speaking of the Phillies, we'll talk about that coming up next, because there were a couple of things I was concerned about over the weekend from what I saw, but there were 3 things I saw that were the most positive I've been about the Phillies since really the start of the season. I'll let you know what those are coming up next here on the Daily Ticket. A little run to the hills.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we knew this was going to happen. As the rounds start to dwindle down, we were going to get some to come on the show. And joining us right now on the Daily Ticket, Jerold Colton, a nice Super Bowl polo there.
This is 2 years ago. This was one after in LA. I can't get myself to wear any Eagles Super Bowl.
No.
I almost put it on today, and it's just still too fresh.
Didn't feel right.
I'm so glad the season's almost here, so we can stop talking about it. I'm so glad.
It actually brought back some scars, but
yeah.
But
so how'd you hit out there today?
Well, we're not done yet. We just we finished. We're making the turn, so we've played 10 holes and we're only 3 under. But we're having fun. We're having a great round. I'm playing with Jeff Moore, the president, of course, who's
with the big dogs. Yeah,
yeah. So we're having a blast.
That's great. Are you hitting it well? You particularly.
You know, the thing about a scramble is that I've had some really good shots, and the bad ones were not ill-timed. So
it's good. It's all about timing.
They covered.
Oh, and you are a perfect person to have on right now, as we are live, by the way, at the Legacy Club at Woodcrest, thelegacyclub.com for the Swing It and Ding It Open, benefiting the Magical Mila Foundation.
John, by the way, I used to be a member here. Back when I was Woodcrest, I lived across. These are all casualties of my divorce. It brings back some. You talk about scars. The Super Bowl's fresh. I'm breaking out and crying every hole here. I passed my old house.
Wow.
Did you really?
To my wife and her
I have done a lot of that. For some reason, in the last week, I have gone by my old house when I was a kid, and I went back to my college that I went to in East Carolina. Oh, wow. So a lot of reminiscing. Yeah, it's a little weird to be doing stuff like that. But I know you and Joel Embiid have this love-hate relationship, it seems like. And he had some comments today. Did you hear those comments?
Yeah, listen, I don't care how we do it today, as long as we win the championship. And I'm just happy to be here. Look, John, Joel is a very smart guy, and he's calculated, and there is reason to look into the meaning as to what he's saying. And he is planning his first salvo, like I'm not necessarily going to be a Sixer forever.
Mm-hmm.
And they better do something better, or I'm out there for other people to
Because
start.
doesn't that feel like a shift? Every time he's ever brought that up, it's always, I want to bring a championship here to Philadelphia. It was always about doing it in Philly. Philly was where he was going to stay for his career and do all of his accomplishments and achievements. And that was the first time it felt like it shifted.
Listen, there's so much that bothers me about the way the NBA works these days in the interview. But the fact is, Maverick Carter's LeBron's guy.
Yeah.
Why is he sitting down with him in the first place? And it's because their agendas are way, way outside of what we want them as fans to be. And it's just the way it is today. The other part is, look, Joel Embiid is the reason the Sixers are relevant. They're the reason that they got away with the process because he kept us okay instead of really accentuating how bad everything has been done by this organization since Josh Harris and company bought it. I mean, they've done everything wrong, but they lucked into Joel Embiid, who still keeps us relevant, still with a potential shot.
Yeah, and he also connected with the fan base a lot. I feel like fans love Joel when he got here.
And John, you do understand that from my standpoint, I think he's a little bit of a fraud. And you guys both know this. Look, he is supremely talented and one of the most unbelievably physical forces to ever step on an NBA court. But when he says stuff like, all I want to do is win a championship, I've never seen either a physical effort, emotional commitment to really doing that. I've always thought his words are fake. I thought his tears in Toronto were fake, and he's done nothing to convince me otherwise. And when he starts saying like, oh, but I can't do it alone, after the season was, I can't do it, just James and I, when James and he came up so bad. And
by the way, that was also in that comment as well, that he said, it's got to be more than just one or two players.
He said, and he came back. Now it was down to one. It wasn't just him and James. It was one or two.
Yeah.
I've always felt he's so selfish. I don't think he genuinely really is committed to winning. When he says, I do everything, I work so hard, he doesn't work that hard, not hard enough. He is just so incredible as it is. And the Sixers will still probably win 50 games.
Yep.
And they probably could still get out of the first round, probably, even though there's a whole lot of challenges for them. So, but I'm frustrated, John, because right now the future looks awful. Daryl Morey is a fraud. He has done absolutely nothing since he's been here except the initial moves of like getting Seth Curry here. But since that time, it's awful. We lost intentionally for 4 years to build up draft picks and win a championship. Now we have no draft picks, haven't advanced past the second round. It's just all garbage. And the only thing keeping us relevant is Joel.
Yeah, and I mean, are we maybe seeing, in times of adversity, you maybe get to see somebody's true colors and everybody's true. Because the Sixers, I feel like we're a likable team. Even though Tobias Harris, maybe it isn't the best, getting overpaid, he still tried hard. He still changed his game to work with James Harden. This team was really good last year. Maxey's a great player everybody loves. But
I think Maxey's the only true
guy. But that's the thing is, after they lost, we're starting to see the true colors. They seem really condescending right now. It seems like they are so defensive about what has happened. And, it's they want to trade me for a crumble cookie. And, Daryl Morey discrediting some reporters as well. All of this, it feels condescending. And I'm not sure why that is.
Well, there's so many reasons, and I see my group about to tee off on the whole here. So
okay,
and they might need my shot. But here's the thing, guys. Morey, when I say he's a fraud, I can't believe the Sixers are all in and that our franchise, as fans or whatever we are here in this area, are entrusted to Daryl Morey. He doesn't deserve us. He doesn't deserve it, or he doesn't deserve us. And bottom line, guys, and I've said this to both of you, he said right after the season that he can't talk about James Harden because it would be tampering. And then James Harden's camp got mad at him, and James Harden opted in. Listen, I've been an agent in professional sports for over 30 years. You can always talk to your own players. James Harden was never not under contract to the Sixers. For this guy to say he couldn't talk to him, to act like that would have been tampering, shows that he doesn't have the basic understanding of one of the most fundamental principles of being a general manager. He doesn't deserve it. And we have no shot to win with him there. And John, I mean, I'm so
getting fired up again.
Yeah.
I am, and I can't believe the media hasn't called him out on this. This is the most biggest joke.
It is interesting.
And then the other part is, since the season ended so ingloriously in Boston on that horrible Sunday afternoon, what have the Sixers done? 0 draft picks. They let Niang walk. Okay, fine. They let Milton walk. Okay. McDaniels, who we gave up a first-round pick.
I still don't. It's not like he got paid a bunch of money. They could have gotten him back.
But he never played for us. And we made that trade of Matisse at the trading deadline. That's all we got. The Deadman also.
Duck the tax.
So all 3 of those lost. Who did we get? We've gotten a guy, Beverly, who's 34 years old, to rekindle the old Houston Rockets. We signed back Montrezl Harrell. We matched Paul Reed at the 11th hour, which clearly wasn't by design the way it all came down. I mean, they're certainly no better than they were, and probably worse, while everyone else around them gets better, adds its pieces. So I'm just fed up, John. Look, I'm always going to be optimistic, and I'm trying to divorce myself emotionally, like I did, like I haven't done from my ex-wife in this place. I'm very nostalgic.
So hopefully you can take this aggression, use it on the golf course on the tee shot.
But tell me where you guys disagree with me.
No, I don't.
I don't. My take on the Joel thing is he's too smart for this not to be intentional. That he absolutely intended for this to get out, for there to be some sort of response, for this message to be received by the Sixers. But it definitely comes up in poor taste by the fact that you were very much a part of why the exit was, and that you were very much a key part of that.
Has he ever taken real responsibility, though? He always points the finger first, then he'll come back around, and I need to do better, too. Like, anyway.
I feel like I need to apologize to your group for getting you started on the Sixers. Hard to take you away from that conversation.
Let's go, Phillies.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them win something without making it dramatic. But,
Yeah.
And the Eagles are just a few days away from training camp, so we got a lot before the Sixers hit the court.
Yeah, we know when you get the longest tee shot, the longest drive on hole 14, we'll know why. We'll know what you'll be thinking. So, I mean, what I'm doing here, I think, is stalling because it's the Sixers. And look, so Joel Embiid made the comments. I think we were pretty clear about how we felt about it. Frustrated, feels a little condescending. The troll stuff, haha, funny, not now. Not in this moment, this particular circumstance. But now let's get into sort of the practical side of things here. He mentioned that, maybe mentioned it for a reason. Is it now? How much do you think, Joel, thinking of, hey, maybe I will get traded, or maybe that's something I in the future know I maybe have to look into?
Well, and one of the things that Jerold pointed out as he came in here all fired up and ready is the Sixers really don't have that positive of a future outlook. This is who they are. They have built up. This is the team they constructed. These are the pieces they've put in place. They're not draft picks that can be flipped for these additional assets. Maxey is the only one that you can kind of hope to take another leap, but you're also have already thrown so much on this kid's plate at 22 years old. And yes, he's answered every call, but to ask him to further be a key part of a championship roster is a lot to ask him at this point in his time and this point in his developmental track. So I think Embiid is hitting the realization of what's next. And James Harden is the biggest elephant in the room as far as what happens there, because we know that he opted in. We know that he wants to work with a trade. We're going to see over the next several months the battle of sources and who says what, who wants what, of James Harden wanting to be out, Daryl Morey refusing to trade him. And frankly, we've seen Daryl Morey stare down the barrel of a holdout before. We've seen him with Ben Simmons not blink, that I'm not rolling over until I get my price tag. We're going to have a different
He's going to be looking at another holdout with James Harden?
Possibly worse. I think we're looking at a hold-in, and that James Harden will be on the court. But what version of James Harden is a different question. We've seen him do this in Brooklyn. We've seen him do this in Houston. The thing that I will say is I don't think James Harden has the luxury of dogging it on the court in the way that he has before, of not caring, because, frankly, he's on a one-year contract. And if Daryl Morey chooses not to trade him, he's still going to be a free agent at the end of this year. Even if he is traded, he's going to be a free agent. And I think it should be a slap in the face to James Harden that there was not this lucrative market for him this year, as was the case. Yes, he can code it as he wants to go to Los Angeles. He wants to play the Clippers. That is why he opted in. But if there was a max contract for him on the table anywhere, he would have signed it. There wasn't, and that's why he is still here. So for James Harden, I think he understands that there's no longer this blank check available for him. So if he wants to cause a whole scene and be a problem, that is going to be noted by teams around the NBA. And frankly, his level of play does not allow for that amount of leash anymore.
Yeah, and I think what Embiid's trying to do is kind of downplay the situation a little bit, because he's doing, and look, he is a troll, and that's what he does, and so it would make sense, but that didn't feel like it was coming from that place. I just feel like it felt like a thing afterwards to try and keep the heat away from him a little bit. So how much... I don't know if what's the validity of these comments, how much he desperately, if at all, even wants to get out of here. I don't know if he does. I think he does want to be a Sixer. I think he wants to win a championship here. But it does kind of strike me that the tone and the message, it feels different. Because if Joel Embiid answered that question a year or two ago, that is a different tone than he answers that now. Because he is, if I'm not mistaken, Sean, and you've seen a lot of his press conferences and obviously a lot of his quotes, it always was, with Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, I am going to accomplish these goals. It was always, I want to do this for, not just for him, but for Philadelphia. He wants to win championships here. It was always the message of, Philadelphia is where I want to do these things and have these accomplishments. And for some reason, now the tone shifts. And even if it was just a brief thing, a passing moment, and it doesn't mean much, there does seem to be a different way he answered that than
Yeah.
before. And I don't know how much you should look into it, if we should look into this at all, if this is even worth looking into, but it does strike me as a big difference from what he has been saying to what he just said yesterday.
Yeah, it's absolutely a message and one that should be heard loud and clear from the Sixers front office. And Joel Embiid specifically means more to the Sixers than any other player to any other franchise. And the reason I say that is the only guys I'll hear arguments for truly are Nikola Jokic, Giannis, Dame Lillard, and Steph Curry. Those are the only four I think are in the vicinity of Joel. But the reason that I put Embiid a notch above them is in each of those circumstances, these players were put in an infrastructure and developed into the player that they became, the superstar that they grew into. Embiid was the infrastructure. He's a guy that has outlived 3 general managers, 2 coaches, 150 plus players. He is the process. He is this era of basketball. And so much of that has reflected positively of him wanting to own that, to him be this era of Sixers basketball in Philadelphia, to be that guy. I think that's been the Joel Embiid that we've come to know. But there is a limit for everything, and there is a line. And I think
it looks like that limit is starting to get closer. I don't
Right.
know if I can say it's been reached. It's going to be reached, but I mean, with this comment being made now, because we thought last year was make or break, right? Last season against the Celtics, game 6 and 7, make or break. Get into at least into the Eastern Conference Final. Show us you can actually take that step forward. And if not, well, it feels like you kind of put all your eggs in the basket for this season and it didn't work. But now that has come and gone. They broke. They didn't make. They broke.
Yeah.
And now we're going into a season where they might take a step back.
And he's
depending on what happens, obviously
Sure.
with Harden, how Nick Nurse latches on to this club and this organization, how quickly that happens and they adapt to his offense. But this is the first time where it feels like they could take a step back. And if they take enough of a step back, then these comments are going to be, to me, be heard even louder. And maybe that's the situation where Embiid does look around. Okay, well, they took a step back. We're going to continue to take steps back.
I'm 30
I know I want to
years
win a
old.
championship, and I'm 30 years old. I want to go somewhere else.
Mhm.
And I don't know how much influence there is of James Harden, but look, he sees what happens around the league. LeBron has moved around. Kevin Durant has moved around. Chris Paul has moved around. His buddy James Harden's moved around. Everybody has moved around.
NBA.
And so it's the NBA. And as much as we want the loyalty of Joel Embiid, and it seems like he wanted to be and wants to be loyal, there's a part of him that's going to want to leave if it doesn't get resolved and this doesn't get better soon and maybe this season. And in fact, if it gets worse, I feel like maybe it isn't a long time for us to find that breaking point of Joel getting traded. Maybe it's at the end of next season.
Yeah, and I think he's having the same realization a lot of us are unfortunately having of how do the Sixers get better. That we've now tried this with Ben Simmons.
Yeah,
We've
right.
tried it with Jimmy Butler.
Good
We've
luck
seen
finding
James
that
Harden.
answer.
Yeah, and
Maybe Nick Nurse has the answer, and I don't know yet. But it seems like nobody else can find it, and I don't know how Nick Nurse is going to.
And even upgrading from James Harden, what does that look like? How do you do that? This trade with the Clippers, who seem unwilling to part with Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, which is the only route I truly would see the Sixers upgrading. There's no other superstar on the market. And Harden, even at the version of James Harden that he currently is, was still the second best player that we've surrounded Joel Embiid with. So to see that, where do you go from here? There's not another guy that increases the Sixers championship chances. The real gamble is how good can Tyrese Maxey be, and what do you surround him with? And even the trade, I think we are going to continue with the face-off. I don't expect there to be a James Harden trade anytime soon. I think this is going to drag on. But even if there is a trade, like if he wants to go to the Clippers, if this is a Norman Powell, Terrence Mann, and whatever else kind of deal, does that increase your championship chances? And then from there, what do you do with that? So it is a tough spot.
None of this sounds great.
No, none of it does. And I think like these are the realizations we're all having. Joel Embiid is not dumb. He understands all this as well, and he's probably involved in these conversations behind the scenes as far as what do we do with James. So to be looking at this, to be understanding that, I think he's hitting this point of like, wow, maybe Philadelphia, it just isn't going to happen.
So I'm going to put a bit of the pressure on you. I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to put a percentage number on it in the next 2 or 3, if you want to say 2 or 3 years, the percentage chance of Joel Embiid being traded or not being with the Sixers.
Okay, so I'll start out with his contract. So under contract for this year for 23-24, also under contract for 24-25 and 25-26, and then has a player option in 26-27. So he's on the books to be with the Sixers for a few years from now, at least 3, including this year. I still think that's going to be the case. I think this is more of a message, and we'll see what happens from here. But, I mean, it's not 0. It's certainly higher than it was a couple months ago, which is concerning. And
How much higher did it get after the comments you saw?
Yeah, it bumped up a couple notches for sure. If I have to put a number on it, I'm going to say 20%, which is way higher than I would have put in years past, but I still don't think it's super likely. I do think there's a world that if they run into this same second round wall this year, that maybe you look at what does a world building around Tyrese Maxey look like? What is it trading a center, embracing this more fast-paced style of modern basketball and going from there? So I do think that it could be viewed from that lenses, but Joel Embiid is a superstar, and we've seen Daryl Morey's price of you need a star in return for a superstar. We're talking about the reigning MVP of the NBA. So this isn't going to be somebody Daryl Morey is going to be itching to cough up, and he shouldn't, because you can't go upward from there.
That is Sean Barnard. Where can they follow you, Sean? And also you do some stuff for Pick Swap as well.
Yeah, at Sean_Barnard1 on Twitter. And yeah, check out Pick Swap Media, where I fully dive into the Sixers rabbit hole.
Yeah, nice.
You can
Good
check-
for you, though, Sean. I will say that's the last we'll talk about the Sixers today. Unless it gets
perfect.
brought up again. Like Jerold comes over here. Somebody wants to talk about it. We will. But I'll save you from it. I think that's the end of the Sixers talk. Is that
Perfect.
good? Is that good
okay
for you?
by me, yeah.
All right.